a noun, a place, 2 years ago. Now it's a verb. You've been dimmicked. That's what people are saying when your water is contaminated now. And so we know over in my area in Bradford Township, Hedgehog Lane, it's been 2 years. They've been trying to get the DEP under the '84 Oil and Gas Act. It's considered presumptive if you drill within 1,000 feet of somebody's water well and you pollute it, it's considered presumptive that you were the cause of it. They're still working 2 years later to get the DEP to resolve their water contaminations. They lost all their water wells up a mountainside, and it's going to cost Representative Causer got a $190,000 grant from the state to put in a water line from the Bradford Municipal Water Authority. And if they want to pump the water up the hill, the cheapest small pumping station to do that would be $750,000. So this is money that's coming back, to the taxpayers anyways. And the company was from Ohio that did it.
Hi, at the county level, we were very disappointed when the county conservation districts were removed from the equation in terms of the oversight and even the regulation of the gas industry by our state. I wanted to ask Bill here, and I apologize for getting here late. You mentioned some of the authority that townships might still have under the gutted laws, but do you know of any specific regulatory authority that a county government might have to exercise over this industry? We haven't found much in our research, and we've done quite a bit of digging.
Just a quick comment. It was DEP Secretary Hanger that removed that authority from the local county conservation districts and moved it to the DEP. And it was supposed to be for the expediting of permitting. And somewhere in the last 2 years, the DEP Oil and Gas Department also took over water management plans from the Water Quality Department. So if you want to talk about being burdened to try to straighten all this out, that's quite a bit to take on. And so I don't know. Basically, I had the same thing in my county, where our county conservation district office is saying, talk to your state legislators and ask them to give us that authority back to, do the E&S plans and planning for it at the local level.
I grew up a mile outside of Dimmock, Pennsylvania. My shock to see where I went to school on the television screen being reported for having the worst, most contaminated drinking water was just enormous. I called my sister, who still has a farm 8 miles outside of Dimmock, and her advice to anyone before they allow drilling on their property, even if you've leased it and that's all done, get a test of your water, your drinking water done. And don't just get the test done, but go into the courthouse and attach it to the title for your property, dated and notarized, et cetera, so that you have a benchmark. She's not going to be receiving the water being piped from the Montrose Reservoir nearly 30 miles away, fortunately, but she does have her water test on file at the Montrose Courthouse.
Speaking of that water test, there's different tests. There's tier 1 and tier 2. Which one would you recommend?
Jim Clark, the water resource specialist for Penn State Cooperative Extension in my county, McKean County. Yeah, and has even mentioned the tier 3 recently, and I wasn't familiar with it, but that's a really pricey test. You're looking at thousands of dollars. So, at the very minimum, you have to get a water test for oil and gas constituents. You have to tell the certified lab that that's what you want because you have drilling coming into your area. But really, if you think about Dimmock, the secretary is going to wants a water line run out to those families, okay? But there's no talk about remediating the aquifer that's contaminated. The reason why the people want the water line is because they don't trust their aquifer anymore. And I think it's all about water. We need to protect our water resources. And if they can't answer those questions, we really should have a moratorium on issuing permits in Pennsylvania until they can answer those questions and figure out how to treat the water, how to dispose of the industrial waste. You know the radioactive waste and the sludge and all that stuff, it's going to landfills. New York's suing Pennsylvania over us sending our contaminated drilling and fracking sludge up to New York landfills, and we're taking it over at Rustic in McKean County. So and we don't really have any radioactive monitors on the sites to monitor how radioactive the materials are that they're bringing up out of the geologic formation. Just some things to think about.
Instead of running the water line, I was wondering if, like years ago, I'm from New York, and Love Canal was a big deal. And eventually they did buy the people out. They bought their land and just turned it into nothing. And I wondered if that was a possibility, as opposed to trying to still save that area. Or is it a case of it's just too large?
I think you hit it, Joe. I mean, Love Canal was Love Canal. You're talking Pennsylvania, the whole state. And we can't recycle the whole state and dump it off the side into Ohio. And that's what it's looking like where it's headed. I had one other comment, and what Bill said is about the radioactivity. There's a study just came out from the University of Buffalo where they're studying the uranium content of the flowback water, and I think also the drill, what's it called? Mud. Yeah, the drill mud. And there's been reports previous to that there were problems with the radioactive content, and pretty much that's what they found in the University of Buffalo. So that's another thing to look at, is the radioactivity that's also coming. What are you going to do with that? You just can't send it down to a sewage treatment plant and then throw it in the river. So.
Is there any group that you know of that is working towards a moratorium on stopping drilling until more information can be gathered? And is there any monitoring of radioactivity planned or going on in Potter County?
To the second question, I can say not that I'm aware of, and I'm sure I would be. So I don't think there's a chance that's happening.
Yeah. I can answer that.
With regard to the first part of your question, unfortunately, I'm not aware. I mean, there are some environmental groups that have suggested a moratorium, Penn Future, for instance, but that is a pretty radical suggestion. That train has left the station. Okay, the time for a moratorium is past. And speaking for Trout Unlimited, we recognize that we're not going to stop this drilling, and in fact, we don't want to stop it. There's a lot of good that will come from this natural gas play. Okay, but
who let that guy up there?
It's possible to do this right, and we want to see it done right. We want to see the appropriate safeguards taken. And New York is a great model. They're saying, let's not do this till we figure it out, till we have the right regulatory programs in place to manage the risks that are associated with this activity. But they implemented a moratorium from the get-go, okay, before the drilling built up a head of steam. Unfortunately, in Pennsylvania, the train has left the station, and there's not much we can do about that. All we can do is work very hard to try and make sure that it's done right.
I just want to comment a little bit on that from what Bob said. We could not even get the legislation to pass a tax. There's no way you're going to get them to pass anything to stop what's already going on. It's probably legally impossible at this point. The other issue is New York got their moratorium, I believe, personally, because New York's watershed was at stake. You know, the Catskill Mountains, they have an aqueduct going from 2 lakes that goes right to New York City. Their water's not treated. They have 8 million people drinking that water. I think if that water went the other way to Corning, it probably wouldn't matter. They'd be drilling up there. But politically, it was really a bad situation for them to possibly taint the water for 8 million people in New York City. That's my personal view.
So they educated their 8 million people. What are we doing to educate our population as far as on the college level? Or people that are in the environmental courses and the ecology courses? Who's writing our books? Who's writing our college textbooks? Halliburton or?
They make big donations.
Those are the legal books, I think.
I would just say I haven't ruled. I don't rule a moratorium on Allegheny Defense Project.
If we can't have a moratorium, you know, you hope that we're going to do the best we can. But shouldn't we be trying to slow down the process? That's actually happened 2 years ago. Delaware River Basin Commission okayed permits to drill, and 2 years later, things were not okay, and they've issued a moratorium. So there's a whole river basin commission, and you're going to see. I think part of what you're going to see is it's going to be done community by community because the state is not picking up the ball.